And he done that time and time again. And we convinced everybody that we had to have one too. And he had that in his mind since the day we tugged out under the trees down in the field there. And it was great that he was there this time 2 years to officially get Joe McDonough to officially open it. That was, I said, the proudest day of his life in the club. And it was great that he had got through all that. But he got through more in his lifetime, and while I know him anyway, that most people could in 2 or 3 lifetimes. So we miss him still, and we talk about him often. And up in our house, while this was going open for long before it, we always called it Pa's house. I didn't say to me, where are you going? To Pa's house. So now it's officially Pa's house, and I'm delighted to see that.
I came here on the 8th of August 1966, and I inquired about Johnny, a local club, and I was told to get in touch with Pa. And sure enough, I got in touch with Pa after about 10 days, and the following Sunday the 24th, he had me playing for my view out in Notre Dame against Killannon, I think we were playing. And from that day on, we formed a very strong friendship. Pa was a very agreeable man to work with, and he was always in good humour. I never remember him giving out to anybody or anything. He was always so pleasant, and he was always planning. Even this building here, he had it in his mind for years, talking about it and measuring it and all that. So it was great that it was built before he left us. And he left us at a time when he could have really enjoyed it, because things were beginning to develop in numbers and everything at that stage. Plus the fact that he had a big interest in athletics, he had a big interest in camogie, you know, and anything that went on around the area, he was fully behind it. Always willing to give a hand and always available to go here or go there. And even at county level, like, he was very well known throughout the county board and that, and very popular, as we could see. God help us, at his funeral, they came from all over the county and beyond to pay tribute to a great friend and a great Irishman in every way you look at him.
Ours is a very friendly rivalry, Pa and myself had. Like, we knew each other, Pa off the Cobbs, and I was working in Heinz at the time, and we were just starting. And of course, Pa had always had one up his sleeve, no matter what. And he'd have one inside his talking to, so he would try. He'd be able. But one thing with Pa, he'd always agree with you, he never disagreed with you. And if you asked him for an under 20, he could put out an under 13 thing, so he could. He'd say, I was shot 1 or 2, like. But he was very sincere, very genuine Pa, like, you could. We were starting now, we were in Breckenridge and more young lads there, and we were ahead like that, because that was a bit older, but Pa always helped out, you know. And we had a few arguments and things like that, but there was one very good one. There was a draw for the community games, and Salt Hill were cock of the walks at the time, but Merview would be next now. We'd be down a little bit in the picking, we were only just started. But anyway, they were making the draw. It was the last 6, was 16 teams in it, and Pa and myself were sitting down together. And I said to Pa, before it, I know what Pa said to me, he said, I wish how we'd come out together now, the two of us. And I tell you, if that happens, I said, if that happens, I said, tell me one thing, missing at the end, you'll be redrawn again anyway. Which is a great idea, Pa said, that's a very good thing to do. Sure enough, what happened? Hoogs 2 names came out first, Merview and Rinmore. And Pa gave me the nudge. Mrs. Cunningham, the art mercenary, she used to go around with the tinted out, and I went in up to get them, and I put in my hand anyway. I took out 2. And next I said, and I was kind of putting under the table, and I let the one fall, and I walked in it, and I had it in, I don't know how it was, but we were short one anyway at the end. the Pa said to me, he said, "Geez, you're playing a great game there," and he said like that. But come up anyway, there's something wrong here in this. But the taking, there was one missing. And I said, there's only one remedy for it. I said, we better make a draw again. And without it, I had barely said to Pa, that's right, that'd be a good idea. We draw again to be fair for everybody else. So we were kept apart anyway. So we're in the same year, didn't we play in the community games final along the grammar school. So that's the fact. But they were good days. Pa he was decent, he was genuine. Very genuine to deal with. So he was. That's what I can say about him. And he a bit of a rogue, like, you know, nice rogue, so he was in his own way, but he was dealing with a rogue too.
1983 was the breakthrough at Adrian for the Merview Club, and we beat Peterswell. I remember it clearly. It was on a Sunday morning in Athenry, and the late Brendan Dowling, who played in goals, was the captain, and Jack Mahan presented him with the cup after the match. I scored very few goals in my time, but I did manage to score a goal from all of about 3 or 4 yards that day. I couldn't miss. It was, you know, it was the start really, I suppose, and it was the first adult victory for Merview, and I suppose from growing up on that, Pa was always there, and you know, taught us all about the GA. I can go back to community games in 1973 when we went to Butlins playing hurling, representing Merview, and that's 50 years ago this year. And Pa and Con would have brought us, and that's a memory I have. And I suppose our era owe Pa in particular and Con a debt of gratitude, because they brought us into the GA, and we're following to this day.
In '87 we were doing very bad in the league, and Michael Neal, Lord Marcel, was our goalie at the time, and he had a lot of knowledge of the Trim Stars. And he said, lads, give him 2 years commitment to him, he's senior, I guarantee you that, he said. We trained very hard, and we won the championship that year, and that was the stepping stone to go on senior by winning the intermediate the following year.
Well, after the previous 87, it just kind of rolled into 88. I think we were in a group, St. Brendan's, Ballygar, Corofin. I think we had 2 draws in the group stages. But the county final was played in the stadium against Lettermore. And we were winning by a point at half time. And you could see the smiles on the Lettermore players' faces, because the wind and the breeze and the rain was worth 4 or 5 points. And thankfully we came out at the end of it. I think it was 9-8 or 8-7 we won. But going back to what the lad said earlier on, Pa was the driving force since the beginning. And you go back to the Jack days, because going back in the early 80s, you either played soccer or played Gaelic. Nowadays there's a lot more connectivity, you know, facilitation between the different sports. And I always remember Pa, you didn't know what time the match was at. You get the little card sent in the door, whatever time, and then you had to guess then, be at the club at 12:15. There was no internet at that stage. There was, you barely remember the Tribune. You were always kind of guess what time Pa was going with it, and it could have been, the game could have been 2 hours later. But every now and then Pa could use a number, we wouldn't have a team, and next thing somebody would come in from Wellpark, or he'd have unearthed somebody from soccer that you wouldn't have seen for ages. I don't know how he did it, like, it was a surprise all the time. But an exceptional, driven man, sorely missed and ahead of his time.
I suppose my earliest memories of Pa was always calling to our house in St James's Road. You'd recognise the car, you'd look out the window, you'd hear the knock on the door or the doorbell, and obviously Pa would come in for a chat, cup of tea with my mum and dad, and generally you got onto Gaelic football, and were you available for a certain game at the weekend, making sure you were there, and if you weren't there he'd pick you up. But then it was a different issue, we'd walk down to the church, get picked up, and off we go. So I always remember when I was living in Dublin for 6 years, I'd come home at the weekends to see my mum and dad, and I would be only 2 minutes to the door of the house, and my mum would say to me, Pa was just here, he wants to know, are you available for a game against Carlisle Strand or Tuam or whatever it was, or there'd be a slip of paper in the letterbox, Are you available Sunday at 3 p.m, whatever. So I'd always flabbergasted, how did Pa know I was coming down? Someone told Pa, it got to Pa, and obviously the network was working.
Certainly did. As you probably know, I grew up in McHugh Avenue, which was the avenue in Merview most adjacent to the pitch. So as a young boy, a very young boy, like 3 or 4, I was watching the games, and you know, and then the day came for me to get my first hurl. So Don Welsh, who lived next door to me, was about 2 or 3 years older than me, and both of us, Don accompanied me up to Connolly Avenue, I think, where Pa lives here, and I remember the sheer excitement of me going to get my first hurley. This was going to be a big breakthrough for me, and then when we got there, Pa, like such a gentleman, such a lovely guy, kind of containing my excitement and at the same time being, you know, very helpful. So I remember being measured and for the hurl to make sure that it was an absolute perfect fit. And I was like 6 or 7 years of age, and came away, and I think I might have slept with the hurley that night in the bed. And as I said, but more importantly, started a great friendship. That's my like very soon then after that, maybe it was in a few years, because as I say, I was a young boy. The Pa was very instrumental, along with Con and others like Christy Egan and other great guys at the time, pioneers. Instigated the street leagues, and if we think inter-county football is competitive, the street leagues, Parnell Avenue versus McHugh Avenue, you wouldn't be able to eat your breakfast, we said that the morning of that match. They were so competitive. But what they did was obviously got us all going, playing games, but also instilled a great sense of community in us. And Pa, if he was still alive, he would be deflecting that sort of credit away, but it was absolutely central, core to that. Us young boys growing up had a great sense of community, great sense of parish, great pride and great love that was instilled in us by him. So the street leagues then, we all kind of, if you like, graduated onto maybe under 12s, so for city league competitions and acquitted ourselves very well because of the organisation that went into the street leagues and coaching. You know, it was really fantastic stuff. So I have very, very warm and fond memories of my early years with Pa. As I say, it was the start of a great friendship. And I suppose with the passage of time, when you look back and reflect as you do at this hour of our lives, we wouldn't have been necessarily conscious of things like values or things that actually go into informing young boys about life and about the direction they should take in life. And it's only, as I say, with the benefit of hindsight, that you see that Pa, in his very understated way, is hugely instrumental in guiding us and identifying priorities for us. Yes, football and hurling were very important, but not as important as education, and look after that bit, and we can look after the other bits as well. So I'd say, you know, it's a cliche, it's often thrown out, but in Pa Grealish's case, a true legend, and a true Merview legend. So I'd say.
What impressed me most about Pa was his commitment to the club, but also his commitment to his own family and his commitment to the community, and everything was based on that. And his sense of loyalty all around, and he tried to instill that, and that was his culture, insofar as loyalty, who you are and where you're from, and be proud of it. It was humility. You take your winning, your victory, and you take your defeat nearly with a smile, and you don't moan, or you don't over delight in front of your opponents. No, we have respect, and that was his on and off the pitch, humility, respect, sense of service and who you are and where you come from. So Pa was the man behind everything that happened, because at one stage, I remember having a meeting. We used to have our meetings out in the community centre next door, and it was being discussed about the future of adult football in Merview. And the outgoing manager of the junior B team had said he didn't see any future for them, and he didn't think that there was, beyond our juvenile section, that we should really pursue developing the game. And Pa said, no, I'll give it one more, I'll take it on, and I'll give it one go. And he did, and they won the junior B that season. I went on and won the junior A. I went on a few years, 2 or 3 years later, and won the intermediate championship when we became senior. And that's Pa. That's what Pa stood for. Progress, loyalty, service, humility, and what Pa had done, we are in and how appropriate it is that this clubhouse is called after Pa. Pa Grealish. He was chairman when it was officially opened by the late president, our own Joe McDonough, of the GAA. A historic day all around. And these are the memories I have for Pa, my admiration and guidance and inspiration as well. And here we are now with what we have.
Pac and I were born in Johishka. It's out near where, it's between Merlin Park and the Galway Clinic today. And there was a small road back there, and there was a quarry house back there and a marble factory. And that's where we were born, in the cottage attached to that house. And we called it Ballynew at the time. And then we moved to Ballybrit after a few years. And that's where we started school in Briar Hill National School. And then after that we moved to Ballintample. And we moved here to Merview in 1957, which is coming up on 66 years ago, this month actually. And Pat went to school in St. Brendan's School in Woodkey then, as far as I can remember. And after that, when we were living in Ballintample, he was a mass server in Castlegar Church. And I remember, and I used to feel so sorry for him, he'd leave the house at 8 in the morning to cycle to Castlegar to serve for the priest, Canon Highland or Canon Mitchell at the time. And he'd cycle home again to Ballintample for his breakfast. And the hail, rain or snow, didn't matter what the weather was, he had no problem going off to serve mass. And I used to feel so sorry for him, my God. I thought it was such a great thing. Then we moved to, as I said, to Merview, this house here, 66 years ago. And Pat went to school in St. Brendan's in Woodkey then. And after that, he started working in Corbett's at Moynigisha, and he was there for a good number of years. And then he met Phil, and he had 3 children, Hubert, Fiona and Gerard. And he started working in Crown then, Crown Control down the road, which was very convenient for him, so near to here. And I remember when we were very young as well, he used to get up on St. Stephen's this morning and he'd go out correcting, do the ran, going round to all the houses in Ballintample, Kiltully, Cardmore, and the whole area. He'd be gone off on his bicycle every St. Stephen's Day collecting. And of course, every house he called to, they brought him in for the red lemonade and cake and biscuits. He used to be nearly sick when he'd get home from all he had eaten. And I think probably in every house he probably got a half-crown, which was very good money back in the day. And he came home in the evening at 5 or 6 o'clock with lots of money, I would imagine. No, I didn't see any of it, but I mean, that was his savings. Of course, we will never forget little baby Gabriel, who died when he was just 3 months and a week old, a cot death. And that left a great mark on us all, and I'm sure particular to Pac and Phil, I'd imagine, the loss of their baby. He was the youngest, he would have been their 4th child. But I do remember Pac the mass was in Merview for him, and I remember all the people up in the church, and he walking up the aisle carrying the little white coffin in his 2 hands, and he placed the coffin on a table inside the altar in Merview. That's my memory of that.
Well, Dave, I came to Galway in 1968. I was working in the Great Southern Hotel. I was only in Galway 3 weeks when I met Pat. A strange thing was that I was staying in Grealish's in Wood Quay at that time, who we related to Pat, but he wasn't aware of that. He wasn't aware of that. So on our first date, we were going to Larry Cunningham in Sea Point, but he stood me up for a county board meeting. But all was grand at 10 o'clock the next morning when he made the phone call apologising. We were married in 1971, and soon into that marriage I realised I was in the second marriage, because he already had married the GA. But I did not ever hold that against him because of the tremendous work he was doing with the youth in Merview. And I suppose to this day I will never get an understanding of how or why he was taken so young from us. But when he did pass, the amount of letters I got and cards from people abroad that said he kept them out of trouble by having them down the pitch. He kept some of them out of jail. And one man said to me he'd stand at his front door of a Saturday morning and stay there until he got out of bed to take him down the field. So I think the highlight of Pat's life was the building of the clubhouse. And many the time his family and myself laughed when we'd see him standing at the front door watching every block going into that clubhouse. It was his pride and joy. And I suppose for me to think that his 25th anniversary, his mass is being held there next Saturday at 3 p.m, it gives us great joy, really. It really does, and give us great pleasure, and give all his friends as well, because they have been talking about it for the past week. After, I'm not quite sure how many years Pat was involved in the credit union. Again, he was involved in helping people in the community. And when Pat passed, God rest his dear soul, then I was asked to go on to his seat in the credit union, and I'm there since, and that is 20 years I'm there. So again, he got great pride and joy in that, because again, he was helping the people in the community and helping people to rebuild their lives with loans and etc.
The night before Pat's passing, he was actually in the west side, and my son and Michael's were playing St. Michael's, and he was doing umpire actually at the game. So we move on then to Friday morning. I'd probably be getting ready to go to work, I'd say, and a call came from Phil to say that Pat wasn't well and the ambulance was here, and I think getting ready to go in the ambulance. So myself and Marla went up, I'm sure, in the car up to the hospital. I remember pulling up, and I knew the Pat was being taken in, and I knew the ambulance man. And I said, how are we, how are things? And he said to me, but it was over my head, he said, things aren't great, he said, Jerry. And it struck me, then I said, God, I say, Pat will have to go to Dublin for an operation. That's all, I had no notion about him passing away. So we're inside in the hospital then, and he mentioned to, I don't know, it was to Phil or tomorrow that I should go back to work, which I had no notion about doing. Then Phil was anxious that I would tell Con and Eileen Condon, Eileen and Martin and Greta Crowley, and I think it was trying to get word to Jared as well, maybe. So I hit off anyway and done that. I went into Con. I wasn't going to stay long. I did a bit of a setup during the machine, and I was just going down to do that. And John Harry came down to me and said, "Jerry, could you come up for a few minutes, you know?" And as I was going to the office, I said to him, "God, yeah," I said, "it's just here going about Park, I'm sure you'll be fine." And he said, "Yeah, Jerry," said, "it's a little different than that now." And at that stage, then he told me that Park had passed. Now, let's say about Park, I suppose I first met around 61, maybe when I started going out with Maura. And the thing about people that make that kind of a contribution, I've come to the conclusion now that they think nothing of what they're doing. They see it as being very natural, but the massive contribution that they make in Park's case to the GAA, to the credit union here in Merview, and to the community at large, you know, that's unrivaled, probably, I would say, in my experience anyway. Now the funeral was lovely. It was a huge funeral, as you know, a massive funeral with the community and people from far and near, and that funeral was led by the president of the GAA, Joe McDonough, who has left us now as well. And it was a great tribute to Pa, and I suppose the most lasting tribute to Pa is the fact that, in my estimation, the fact that Phil continued on his work in the credit union and has done marvellous work here and is doing marvellous work, and indeed is doing work well beyond the credit union and the community of Merview. And then the St James's GA Club are a credit to Merview and to the city, and a great legacy for Pa, Lord rest his soul, you know. So that's my memories of Park, and don't know if we'll see it like it.
It gives me great pride, great feeling of the great work that's been carried on and all the activities in the clubhouse. I don't know how to put into words the work that Dave Henry and his team are doing. But one thing is sure, I'll never forget him.